Demonstration with Beth and Stephen Daniel and Michael.
I'm Beth Daniel, and I'm one of the co-founders of Quantum Techniques. You can check us out at quantumtechniques.com. We're here today doing live demonstrations so you can get a feel for what is quantum techniques, since that's the most common question that we have sent to us on our website. I'm here today with my husband, Dr. Stephen Daniel, the founder of Quantum Techniques, and we have a live subject here named Michael, who has so kindly joined us today.
A live one.
And he'll be working with us and looking at some physical issues that he's been struggling with for a period of time. So we're going to be running one of our Quantum Techniques scans or treatments with him today for all of you to see. Another thing I want to mention is the borrowing benefits model, and this is a model that was described by Gary Craig regarding EFT. We also use that model here at Quantum Techniques, and what that is for anyone that is watching and listening, if there's anything that we're doing that resonates with you, you can also use the treatment that we'll be giving to Michael at the end of the session. If you know someone who has issues similar to those we're working with Michael on today, you can share the treatment code, and we'll explain that at the end. You can share that with that other person as well, even if they're not watching this, telling them it might be helpful for them for that specific issue. Michael, what are some of the issues that you'd like Steve and I to take a look at today?
Well, on the top of my litany of woes is atrial fibrillation, prostate, my original left hip. I have an artificial right hip. My original left hip now is going out on me, and the X-rays show it to be pretty close to bone on bone. I have a pretty serious Raynaud's disease in my toes, which turn purple, and in turn cause a real scaling on my feet that's definitely not very attractive. I have phlebitis in my left leg, my right leg, sorry, that bothers me occasionally. Arthritis. I have some pretty gnarly bumps on my fingers. If any more things come up.
Michael, how old are you?
I'm 77.
Yeah. So young 77.
Pretty good shape, yeah.
We've just met, and just in a short description, he eats almost all organic, kind of low meat, stuff he raises in his own garden.
Yeah.
So he's doing what he knows to be healthy.
I do probably eat more sugar than I should. I've got a really bad sweet tooth. I try to keep it pretty much under control, but I eat probably too much dried fruit also. But basically I eat out of my garden and fresh fish. My son-in-law's a fisherman. I only eat antibiotic, hormone-free meat when I eat it, which is rarely. And I eat quite a bit of chicken.
Do you notice anything specific after you eat a fair amount of sugar or dried fruit in your body?
I get kind of a letdown. I mean, maybe I'm preconceiving this letdown. I don't know, because I know, you're supposed to get the sugar blues after you eat sugar. But when I eat the sugar, which is, I call it the kid syndrome. You want to get the instant taste, and you pay the price, which is huge at the other end of the taste. And so I try to avoid that, but I'm a sucker for sugar.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't eat tons of sugar, but I do eat cookies and cakes and stuff, yeah.
Have you had any blood sugar issues that you're aware of over time?
My blood sugar in my last test was 80. The one before that it was 76. The one before that, it was around in that same area in the 70s.
Okay.
My cholesterol last time was 156. Time before that, 178. Before that, in the 170s.
Yeah, so that's looking good.
And the LDTs and everything was good.
Okay. I'd like to start out looking at the atrial fibrillation. Would you say that's your priority issue?
Well, yes and no. I now have found, since I moved here, an acupuncturist who can come to my house and convert me within a half hour. Whereas if I go to the ER, it costs the Medicare and my Screen Actors Guild $8,000, and I'm there for 4 hours, and those silly lights, and what do? They hook me up and give me some sugar, or maybe some procainamide, you know, and you know, and it does nothing to cure it. Now, my doctor, Joel Friedman, has been giving me shots of L-carnitine, which has been helping. I haven't had an event since he started them about 3 weeks ago.
Great.
But the prostate is a big issue because if I'm up 6 or 7 times a night and I got to walk around to get the prostate to diminish enough so I can pee, then by the time I get back in bed, it's time to get up again. I don't get any sleep.
Yeah, so that's a big issue.
So that's a huge issue.
Okay.
You know, if I can sleep through 4 hours, I'm thrilled. And that rarely happens. So usually, and if I can do an hour and a half increments and get up, and an hour and a half and get up, then I'm happy. It's when I'm up every 45 minutes it's really tough.
Well, Michael also shared that the atrial fib more often than not happens at night.
Yes.
So we know there's a nighttime feel that's usually hypothalamic mediated that we'll look at. And one other thing, if we think of all these issues, a key issue with all of this is inflammation. And I tested Mike just a minute ago, just muscle testing, on a scale of 1 to 10, and you'd like his inflammation to be a 1, it was a 46. So it was like off the scale, but that makes sense with, here's the hip, we had another hip, we've got some arthritis, there's inflammation all over. And we tested his foods, and we've shown that in other things, so I'm not gonna take the time to teach that right now. But he's bad on nightshades.
I eat a lot of potatoes and a lot of tomatoes.
Right. And nightshades, besides being the #1 cause of inflammation in the body, sugar second, and then we have hidden pathogens, and that's what we're going to find, probably with the vagus nerve and with the prostate. We'll be able to help you with that. But nightshades,
Pathogens, my goodness.
well, nightshades also cause vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction. So, and you know, that's tobacco, tomatoes, white, yellow, red potatoes, peppers with the exception of black pepper, not chilies, garbanzo
Ooh,
beans,
I eat a lot of
chickpeas.
cayenne pepper because I'm told that it's good for the prostate.
Okay, but if you check, we'll check that. But what we're saying is, why is your inflammation, you know, almost 5 times what is the maximum you would see in someone? But all your symptoms fit that. And see, vasoconstriction is the key issue with Raynaud's disease. You know, and so the reason, I'll bet you, we get you off nightshades, and again, most foods, if you're off of them for a week, you get the full benefit. With nightshades, because there's a chemical compound called alkaloids, you have to be abstinent, not once a week, 0, for about 3 months to get the full effects. If at the end of 3 months you're not noticing anything, then go back on it. But that's going to be a huge part of getting this overall inflammation, and it may save you from having to get that hip surgery.
Now, cannabis has an alkaloid in it. Is that the same kind of alkaloid we're talking
No.
about or no?
That doesn't test bad against inflammation.
Okay.
So did you want to jump in on the atrial fib? Did you want me to start with the prostate? It's up to you.
Well, actually, what I'm seeing, as you were talking, what I'm seeing is there's a big issue with the nighttime field. So, like right now, Michael, if I test you, and this is my form of muscle testing for anyone that's watching, and I do various things with my hands. That's just specifically muscle testing for
Your
strength
husband
and
will be doing
weakness.
this a lot.
Yeah, he goes like this, I go like this. We're all good.
This is my Tourette's thing.
Right. Joel Friedman has a...
Yes, his pendulum. Yeah, and that's another form of muscle testing for people that are listening. Yeah, is a pendulum, and you can use that as well. But if I test you right now, what I'd like you to say is, I want to be healthy.
I do. I want to be healthy.
And that tests strong. That's good. Okay. If you say, I want to be sick, that tests weak, which is good. We want that to test weak. Okay, so you're testing strong on I want to be healthy. So that tells us that Michael's meridians are flowing in the correct way for optimum health. So when he's awake during the day, he's not reversed. He's not in a state of reversal. Now close your eyes and think about being in bed at night. So the act of him closing his eyes, he's now testing weak on the statement, I want to be healthy. That tells us this is where we want to go in. We want to go in on the nighttime field. And when you listen to your client, what he's telling us is these issues are much worse at night. So we know this is where we need to go first.
There are some times at night when I'm having a run, sometimes the atrial fibrillation comes in a run. It comes like 3 or 4 days in a row. When I'm having a run, I'm remiss to go to bed. I don't want to go to bed.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. So let's check that out. And one thing that we know is in the nighttime field, our hypothalamus, which is a small little gland in the brain, is active. Not as much during the day. So when Michael's eyes are closed, the hypothalamus is testing reversed or weak. Okay.
Now I do a lot of Tai Chi. I teach Tai Chi and I've been doing it since the 60s. I sit every morning and I've never had any trouble with any of that. One of the main problems with the atrial fibrillation is when it comes, my blood pressure goes down to like 90/50. And I get so weak that I can't stand. Sometimes I fall to my knees. That's rare when it's that strong. So in the daytime, and I'm very active during the daytime, so rarely does it happen in the daytime. Sometimes it'll happen in the morning after I get up, occasionally. But maybe in all the times that it's happened, maybe twice during the day.
Okay. And that's great information to have as well. Okay, so if we go in on this nighttime field with the hypothalamus, and if I test, Michael's most stressed organ or gland is the hypothalamus overall in his body. So it's a good place to start. Is there a second stressed organ or gland that I want to be aware of during this session? Yes, the adrenals. Now, the adrenals and adrenaline are often involved with atrial fibrillation, so we're already getting somewhere. Okay. Is there a third stressed organ or gland that we need to be aware of today in this field? Yes, it's the prostate. Is there a fourth stressed organ, gland, body system, nerve that we need to pull into the treatment today? Yes, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve has 2 branches, right and left, and runs throughout the body to most major organs and glands in the system. So there's something there that's reversing as well. Is there another stressed organ or gland, nerve in this field that we need to pull in for this session today? No. Another thing I wanted to mention that we're looking at here, and Steve is over here on the sidelines doing some testing, finding some other fields so that we can kind of both treat you at the same time and find out what's going on. So you're really getting an extra special scan here. And one other thing that we want to look at is blood vessels because of Michael's description about the Raynaud's in the feet. So we're looking at some circulation issues as well. And
I have those issues when it's cold.
Yeah.
My fingers turn white instead of purple, but these turn purple.
Okay, yeah. So we're looking at that too as in the background. When we think about Michael with his eyes closed, laying down, not just eyes closed, but if his eyes are closed and he's laying down, his vagus nerve goes into sympathetic overdrive. That means it's in fight or flight. So he's not really resting the vagus nerve. Okay, if he gets up, his vagus nerve tests okay. If his eyes are closed and he's sitting like in a meditation kind of yoga position, his vagus nerve is not in overdrive. So like you said, you can be doing other things with your eyes closed and you're usually okay. It's just when you're laying down.
So there's some kind of positional trauma field as well as hypothalamus. So there's always more than one aspect.
All right.
Now, when all of this started, was there a physical trauma?
Well, yeah, it started about 20 years ago in New York. I was walking on the street with a friend of mine, and first I think I maybe should mention that I've taken a lot of psychedelics, a lot of speed. I mean, a lot. I was a super, I was super into, I was a thrill addict, super into stimulation. Wanted to be stimulated. We took acid once every day for a year and a half. and trying to work with the tolerance rates, so to figure out how you can stay with it. Now, when I told the cardiologist that I first had the event with, when I came back to Los Angeles, about all this, he said, "Oh, it doesn't matter." I said, "Are you crazy? What do you mean it doesn't matter?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, what do you think is causing it?" He said, "It's just bad luck." And how can you have any faith in somebody that that talks to you like that?
I can see what happened. Your adrenals were really impacted during that time of your life with the drug use and caused some DNA damage to your adrenals.
Sure.
Your adrenaline is testing toxic at night.
Probably. There would be days where I would be up for maybe 4 days and 4 nights. And not up because it was natural, up because I was on speed or psychedelics. And then on the 5th day, my heart would be slamming in my chest.
Yeah, so we need to look at treating that DNA damage, Steve, to the adrenal field. And if we check that, another thing we want to do then is really look at those residues from years gone by and just clear and flush them from your system because they're taking up some space on some cell surface receptors in the body, including the receptors in the adrenals.
Right.
Yeah, so we want to pull that in here too. That's really great
Now,
information.
there's another point. I don't know if this is relevant or not, but there's different kinds of drug taking. When I've taken peyote in Window Rock with Navajo Roadman and spent a night in a hogan, I mean, it was a totally different experience. Same thing in Peru taking ayahuasca. Same thing in Mexico taking magic mushrooms with Maria Sabina. All very powerful shaman that I worked with. It was a totally different drug taking experience than me taking drugs on my own to try to get overly stimulated.
Right. Okay.
So, I don't know. Those particular incidents seem to be healing, rather than taking from me.
Well, you had a different intentionality. You were looking to expand consciousness and find kind of a spiritual connection. That's very different than I'm running away from myself with a stimulation.
Well, but I had the same delusional motivation when I was taking them on my own. I said, "Oh, I can do this on my own," And of course, when it becomes habitual, it's no longer has the spiritual, benefits that.
Okay. And I'm just checking some other things. There are no spiritual attachments, energetic attachments showing up. I'm clearing a brain virus as you were talking. Most of us have them over time. There's something that's just kind of there that the body doesn't see. So I was just clearing that right now. I do want to go in on this viral field. And then, Steve, maybe you can go ahead and clear some of the drug residues that Michael was sharing in terms of especially anything that was an upper or a stimulant, especially off of, that adrenal, vagus nerve, heart, kidney field.
Oh, my neck makes my neck stiff thinking about that. I took one particular substance for a long time that a neurologist friend of mine was providing me with. It was called Obitrol. It was supposedly a diet pill. They took it off the market. It had 4 different kinds of amphetamines in it: dextroamphetamine sulfate, methamphetamine hydrochloride, dexedrine, and I forgot what the other one, but it put you on the moon.
When was that? Do you remember? How many years ago?
That was about, I guess, in my 30s.
Okay. Okay, that's still hanging around too, energetically.
Yeah. That was, and I took that for years, those for years.
Okay. Yeah, and that also,
And then you have to take downers to come down from that too. So lots of Seconal and, and then I've taken just about every drug on the planet. I mean.
Okay. Yeah, so this is contributing to a lot of inflammation.
Yeah.
And DNA damage in the body. So drugs, viruses, those are really the main 2 things that contribute to DNA damage. Chemotherapy is another one. So Steve's going to go ahead and clear some of that. I'm going to go ahead and check some viral fields. Is that okay with you? Okay. So if we look at, I did find a brain virus that's in this field. Okay, there's more on that. So any other brain viruses? Yes, we're going to clear motor cortex, the cerebellum, amygdala, association cortices. This is somewhere else in the brain. Yes, prefrontal and premotor. Okay, Is that somewhere else in the brain? No. In the body? Yes. So now I want to see, are these viral issues in the vagus nerve, the heart, the adrenals, the kidneys, anything that could be contributing to atrial fib? Also the prostate. So we know there's a viral issue in the prostate gland that your body's not seeing. We're also pulling in what we call hidden virus that is there that your body has not been able to see. So let's clear that. We're going to clear virus in the vagus nerve. Do we need to be more specific? Yes. So virus in the vagus nerve to the kidneys, vagus nerve to the heart.
To complete my history, I don't want, should,
No,
I
go
not,
ahead.
should I not talk
No,
now?
it's fine. I can treat you at the same
To complete my
time.
history,
Yeah.
in my early to mid 50s, I stopped taking all psychedelics and all speed of any kind, and have smoked a little bit of pot since then, and that's about it.
Okay.
And I have a license.
Vagus nerve to the colon has a viral field. I just cleared to the bladder as well.
Oh, colon. I think I was born constipated. I'm constantly dealing with constipation.
Okay. Then we need to check the foods more carefully against that
different
field.
field, right?
Now, do you avoid gluten grains?
I try to, yeah. I try to, if I'm gonna eat flour, I eat spelt flour is the only wheat flour I eat. I try to eat rice flour, and
Okay,
when
good.
I make my own baked goods, I put a little agave with rice flour and maybe spelt flour and quinoa flakes, stuff like that.
Okay. So for your colon, if we keep the colon in mind with the constipation issue, you do show milk intolerance.
Oh God, yes.
Okay.
I'm up all night hacking and mucus stout.
Okay.
Anything that, if I eat any kind of cheese, basically.
Yeah. And somewhat of a gluten intolerance. I think you're more intolerant to milk than gluten. But,
Real intolerant to milk, yeah. Milk.
okay.
Ice cream.
So you're aware of that. That's good.
Yeah, I don't eat any of that.
Okay. If I ask, back to this viral field, is this somewhere else in the body challenging you? Yes. Okay, there's more coming up in the kidney field, and that's very common with atrial fib as well. And there's more in the vagus nerve that I didn't find the first time around. Okay, we want to pull in the thymus for a viral field, and then the bladder. You've already got prostate. Okay. Are those viral frequencies somewhere else in the body challenging your health? Are they somewhere else in Michael's field acting as a lock and key frequency? Yes. The lungs. And this is just a different kind of treatment that's called lock and key. We'll be filming something on this in the future. Hypothalamus. Prostate is a lock and key field with virus. So is colon. Adrenals. Thyroid. Gallbladder and bladder. Okay. Steve, do you want to share anything that you're working on here?
Sure.
I'm also very skeptical.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I find it kind of amusing, all you guys making all these
Connections.
motions and connections, yeah.
Yeah, I can go back and just start here with what we found. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what we really look at in this is, the body was made to self-heal. The squirrels don't line up at the pharmacy.
Yeah.
They don't get artificial hips.
Yeah, yeah.
So why is the body disconnected from its healing intelligence? And what we find is something's disconnected. That can be physical, like toxins, like let's say the nightshades are causing inflammation. It can be the medication. It can be emotional trauma. Okay.
Well, speaking of medication, the acetate flecainide that the AMA gives me for my heart actually says on the counterindications may cause a speedy heart rate.
Right. Yeah. That doesn't test particularly.
Along with the cardiologist that told me that all the drug taking had nothing to do with it.
Right.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what we've got in terms of disconnected systems and what that means. So part of it is we've got to show the body where the problem is. It's lost track of things. I'll explain that in a minute. And then secondly, you get up every day with that divine intention to heal, but if you eat a toxin, it causes your meridians to go backwards. And if your meridians are going backwards, nothing works. Acupuncture doesn't, medications doesn't, our work doesn't.
I would
okay?
imagine, yeah, that makes sense.
So what I found, I'm just going to go through the list. If I check your blood vessels, okay, they are offline. And when I say brain engines, it's imagine that your lamp blows a light bulb and it pops a circuit breaker. So you got to put a new light bulb, but you still have to reset the circuit breaker. Okay, what we're saying is your blood vessel circuit breakers to cell memory and to cerebellum are off. Okay, and that's something I can show you on charts. We'll put all of that in the code. Well, cerebellum is what controls body chemistry changes. And the body then scans itself, let's say, whatever, every 5 seconds, and says, oh, there's some virus, go get it. There's some cancer cells, go get it. If it's disconnected with cell memory, it doesn't have its original blueprint to compare to. And again, most of the time when we do this, we would have gotten a little tiny blood sample that you would hold next to the skin. We can miss some things with that, but for demonstration purposes, we're just moving forward. So your blood vessels were disconnected with body chemistry and the original blueprint. So were your hip bones. Okay, so the body's not registering deteriorative changes in those hip bones to make appropriate changes the way it was designed to, because they're knocked offline.
Can the cartilage be actually brought back?
Yes.
Can I add something to that? Your body's own calcium is testing reversed.
Yeah.
So what's happening is, like with bone spurs or arthritis, it's like there's almost like calcifications here. And what we want to pull into the treatment is his own calcium. And we typically balance that with your own hormones and your own vitamin D. And that pulls the calcium out of a reversal, so that when you eat anything with calcium in it, it stays in a liquefied form as it's supposed to, instead of going into solid.
I'm in the sun a lot.
So good vitamin D.
Yeah, I'm in the sun a lot, and I do eat a lot of leafy greens a lot, every day.
Right. Right.
Sure, calcium.
Yeah,
And-
so we
and
need to clear.
almonds and-
We need to clear your body's ability to absorb that better.
Yeah. I don't think I'm absorbing as well
No,
as I
you're
could
not.
be. Yeah.
And then what happens when it doesn't absorb and go in the bones or teeth like it's supposed to, it leaches out of the bones and teeth and goes into places you don't want it, like the arteries,
Hips.
the hips, or the
Yeah,
arthritic
yeah.
changes.
Joints.
I have almost all false teeth from as a kid. Again, I was a real sugar junkie as a kid, and the teeth just went to pot.
Okay. Well, in addition, we found the vagus nerve, which we're talking about, stays in a fight or flight response, meaning it's always in a fear state. Once you close your eyes and lay down, the vagus nerve goes into a fight or flight response. The vagus nerve is also disconnected from the cerebellum cell memory. Okay, again, those same things. It's not adjusting the chemical changes. Now, maybe that was all blown out by drugs. We'll find that out. Okay. The hypothalamus was off with cell memory. The prostate, and this makes sense, was off. It's in sympathetic overdrive. Okay, meaning it's in a trauma state, and you've got a story to tell about that. Okay, it's also off with the limbic system and the amygdala. Those are both trauma or fear fields. It's off with cerebellum and cell memory. It's also off with the hypothalamus. That's why most of the symptoms are at night. It's disconnected from the kidney, so it's not the blood flow or the urine flow, the body chemistry of fluid retention and shifts are off. It's offline with the vagus nerve and cranial nerve 12. So it's like it's in its own universe. It's not talking to the rest of your body. But
The hypothalamus?
the prostate.
Okay.
And you said about 20 years ago you jumped and had a real bad injury
Yeah.
to the urethral
When I
area.
was 58, I jumped onto a cast iron. I jumped off a porch, and it was dark. Couldn't see anything, and I jumped right onto the corner of a cast iron sauna, a very sharp corner, and it hit me between the testicles and the penis, and blood started pouring out of me. And they were there within 10 minutes and had me in St. John's, and the urologist, Beverly Hills urologist that I asked for, who was really, really good, he came and he said, you know, you're screwed. You're going to be in a catheter probably for months. And so I just ordered up some Valium and went to bed, and like a cat, stayed in bed and ate very little, only vegetables and maybe a little quinoa. And in 2 weeks, he was able to take the catheter out. But it left this incredible round disc of collagen at the base of my penis, which may or may not be playing into this.
But what's interesting is, that was a nighttime trauma. It was dark outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you think it's safe to get up and walk around at night with that in a body memory? Do you think your prostate says, hey,
Don't,
We're not going to release. We're ready for that sharp point again. So we hold body memories. So there's in a non-healing issue. There's always a non-physical component, and so we found that. Went back and looked at adrenaline, epinephrine, and dopamine. Okay, so those are our three excitatory neurotransmitters.
Right.
And you have enough of those on the outside of the cell, but they're not getting through to the inside of the cell. So even though you might have been taking a lot of drugs, you were starved for their effects because it wasn't working. Okay?
Well, I would dispute that, but sure.
But I'm saying excitatory things, a lot of it wasn't getting through. If we ask why, there were 11 factors. 10 were medications, street drugs are medications, blocking the body's ability to use its own adrenaline. Okay? And that, again, adrenaline is how our body controls inflammation. And one was a viral field. So,
Remember, it's been over 20 years since I was a serious drug taker. And the meditation, all the stuff that I do, that I hope is going to counteract all that, you know, I feel has worked to a degree, but yeah, I'm sure there was some huge damage done, yeah.
but see, this is, what we're talking right now is software. It's something we can fix.
Great.
So we can clear those cell surface receptors. So have we worked with people that 50 years ago had a vaccination and it's still blocking the neurotransmitters that causing chronic depression or something else, and we clear it and it's changed within 24 hours? That's not uncommon.
Well, what is the ingredient, not the dopamine, what is the ingredient that makes you feel so good?
Endorphins?
Yeah, no, not endorphin. There's the one particular one.
Think about serotonin?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my serotonin level tends to be pretty good when I'm meditating.
No,
I get in the zone really
Right.
fast.
And see, the inhibitory neurotransmitters, meaning that's getting in the zone, which are serotonin and GABA, are fine on the outside and the inside of the cell. It's just the excitatory ones where we're going to clear that field.
The adrenaline in particular,
Yeah.
because of DNA damage to the adrenals. I also found some mercury in the adrenals and kidneys, so I'm just kind of adding that into what we're doing, also showing up in the colon.
I'm going to come back and I'll clear this in a minute, but I'll just say what else we found. When I went into the prostate and removed hidden fields, meaning the body couldn't see the prostate or you wouldn't have this inflammation there.
Right.
Okay, and it showed 111 viral frequencies. So meaning, of course, with damage there, that becomes the weakened link. So pathogens go there because the body can't see them. Your body can see the rest of it because look at all the things the prostate's offline with.
I was also warned that they would go to my artificial hip too if I'm not careful.
Okay.
Infections would go to my artificial
Well,
hip.
that comes up here. Where was the virus? The adrenals. Now think about what we've just already talked about. The bladder, the liver, the kidney, the hypothalamus, the hip, and the blood vessels. Okay.
Vagus
And
nerve.
if you think about, is part of the Raynaud's, you know, the vasoconstriction,
Right.
reducing the blood supply to the hip bones and the cartilage so that then starts degrading. Okay. You had 2 mycoplasma infections, and those are atypical bacteria in the vagus nerve. Again, that's that nerve that's causing the atrial fib. In addition, the mycoplasma, the viruses were also in the vagus nerve. I changed my notes. The mycoplasma we found in the large intestine, so you start talking about, you know, constipation, thyroid, adrenals, small intestine, bladder, liver, kidney, again, prostate, blood vessels. So there's that, you know, phlebitis, both viral and mycoplasma. The body is a really adept at getting rid of a bacterial infection. If you can't clear a bacteria, like if you have a bad sinus infection, you've got a virus or mycoplasma because the body can clear bacteria almost every time. The colon was then disconnected with the vagus nerve and the kidney and cell memory. So that's what I was doing all over here while she was working on it. I'm going to go ahead and clear those cell surface receptors while you jump in there.
Well, and once you cleared that, it's interesting now more is showing up.
Right.
There's a bacteria in the hypothalamus that I could not see before. So we're actually going to clear that. And like I said, there was a mercury issue also in the hypothalamus as well. There's a bacterial field showing up in the kidneys. So we want to pull that in. Also the colon, the thymus, and the bladder. Is the bacteria resonating in the prostate as well? Yes. And then if we pull in the area of the phlebitis, bacterial field that's hidden from the body's healing intelligence there. Michael, when the atrial fib started, that was about 20 years ago, was there any kind of, I'm getting something about an injectant, was there any kind of a vaccine, a shot, bad bug bite, something that broke your skin around that time? And in addition to that, there is a emotional
Does it test?
trauma.
Does it test that sharp point? Was the injectant?
Yeah.
That's it. If something gets me
I
between the balls
don't-
and penis, that's going to get my attention.
Oh, was that 20 years? There's
That
something
was,
about 20
that was
years.
when I was 58,
Yeah,
Okay, that is it then.
19
I
years
know.
ago.
Okay,
I
that's
could
it.
see that one.
Okay, that contributed to the atrial fib starting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it put your
Well, wait a
body
minute,
into
did
like
that happen
a shock or
before
trauma
or
field.
after the atrial? I don't remember. It was right
Okay.
around the same time.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
right around the same
interesting.
time.
Yeah,
I
that would be an
think-
injectant.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
book, it sure counts.
blood shooting everywhere.
I'd have to look and see when they
Okay.
did that movie. Judicial Consent was the name of it.
Okay.
Let me see what this is. 11, 91, 81. Yeah, it would be around that same time.
Okay.
But it might have happened. The movie might have. The first event might have happened before that accident.
Okay.
I don't know, but definitely right close to the same time. And I could be wrong. It might have happened afterwards.
And there's an emotional trauma with that. Well, that makes sense too. I mean, it
Yeah.
was emotionally very traumatic as
Well-
well.
Talk about being between a rock and a hard spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to pull that in. So the fear field into the vagus nerve and the kidneys. And I think that's why the kidneys are involved, from the fear that happened at that moment. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I think once we clear that field, the atrial fib will clear. If I check on that, all other injectants are okay, so there's nothing else there. All other ingestants, there's nothing else you're eating contributing to the atrial fib. All inhalants, you're good there. You don't wear like heavy colognes and stuff like that.
No.
No. So yeah, that's all looking good in terms of
And
toxins.
I
They're very
don't, I
clear.
don't drink coffee or green tea or anything that's a stimulant. I stay away from stimulants.
Well, and if I check right now, and what we do is you're seeing us treat you. In other words, we're actually making the connections now, and then at the end you'll get a series of acupressure points like I talked about, and we'll have you read that so many times a day, and every time you read it, it's like we were both there just retreating you. Okay, so we'll talk about that afterwards because you're very new to this work.
So it's like a self-treatment when I
Absolutely.
do this and this. And
Right.
Exactly.
And you won't even have to do that. You just read a series
You
of
just read
ED,
it.
IF, SH, IF.
Oh, okay.
We'll show you how to do that. But what's really interesting is if I test his body now, meaning if we account for the nightshades, which were a toxin issue, and all these pathogens, and we clear everything else, his inflammation level will come down to a 10 of 10 versus a 46 of 10. So I would say, you're going to drop your inflammation 80% by just doing this and getting off the nightshades.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're set. We have a complete treatment if we ask. Do we have 100% of the physical information necessary to heal this? Yes. Do we have 100% of the non-physical? Do we have 100% internal cooperation from Michael in clearing all of this and healing this now? Yeah.
And when I cleared the cell surface receptors blocking adrenaline and dopamine, it also, I found out it was the 10 medications, street drugs, whatever, plus the one viral. I tested that also cleared the calcium issue. But that was my
Okay.
intention, to let it
Yeah.
clear every cell surface receptor involved in this case.
You mentioned, before we started, you mentioned that you would like to follow up. I would like you to follow up too, and I'd like to follow up periodically.
Sure.
And see, and I'll tell you exactly what's going on.
Right.
Or you can, or I'll meet with you, or however
Yeah,
you want to
no,
do
we'll
it.
definitely
You live
do
here,
that.
right?
Oh yeah, live in
Yeah,
Haiku.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, so that'd be easy. That'd be real easy.
Right.
But yeah, because we like to follow that up, and
yeah.
it's really rare that we don't get a significant shift in people.
Great.
Quickly.
Very
Yeah.
quickly.
I'm
So,
ready.
yeah. Well, why don't you give the code?
Okay.
And you know what, Michael? Since you've never done this, even as bad as my handwriting is, I'm going to write the code down for you.
Okay.
And then that way, this is kind of a learning curve for you too.
Doctors are notoriously, lovely to have read their handwriting.
I could use my toes and write as well, but we'll
Yeah,
do
do you
my
want, do you want
best.
me to write and you give the code?
There's a better idea.
I think so. So you can read it.
And even I could read it. That way.
I'm pulling in some DNA damage that's showing up right now in an adrenal field, colon, kidney, some other areas that.
Also, that scar tissue we talked about.
Yeah, the scar tissue area as well. So make sure that's cleared as a curtain.
Okay.
to the healing intelligence. Is that testing clear? And any scar tissue
Let's
there?
try DNA with prostate, going back, okay, prostate, scar tissue, vagus nerve, kidney, blood vessels, hip
adrenals.
bones, and adrenals. Okay, now, if I check here, okay, and you mentioned, do we have 100% of the DNA field? Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So now it's clear.
Right.
Okay, good. Just checking.
So it's SH, G50, SH, IF, G50, IF, G50, SH, IF, EB, IF, EB, SH, IF, G50, IF, G50, SH, IF, OE, AC, 9G, then that UN, SH, UN. You don't need a chakra pattern.
Okay.
Yeah.
How often does that test?
Are you saying chi?
G.
G.
Oh,
Per
gee,
gamut.
oh.
Yeah, I was born in Texas. I've got an energetic draw. I got out at 6 weeks before the speech impediment, but
Because
still working.
all the martial arts are following the chi
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
Oh,
are too.
We are working with Chi.
Yeah.
I would read that twice in a row, 3 times a day. And since we've already input the points, all you have to do is read it.
I don't mind pointing to anything if you want me
But
to
I'm saying
point.
you don't have to tap. In the old style, people would tap it. You can just read it.
And
Okay.
touch the points if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to touch the points, that's fine too.
All right.
But then our website, quantumtechniques.com, I'll give you a business card.
Okay.
You can download a manual that has a lot of other stuff and will help you.
Okay.
It's free manual.
Okay.
And then that way you can call me in a week or 2 weeks,
Great.
and we want to see how you're doing.
Okay.
But good. I think we wrapped that one.
For more information about quantum techniques, visit our website at quantumtechniques.com.